Top U.S. and European officials are concerned that Russian President Vladimir Putin is factoring the 2024 U.S. presidential election into his Ukraine war planning in hopes that a loss by President Joe Biden next year will lead the U.S. to curtail its support for Ukraine and improve Russia's negotiating position. For U.S. officials told CNN, the U.S. does not yet have explicit intelligence about Putin's mindset, or whether he is purposefully dragging out the war in hopes of a Donald Trump or Republican presidential victory. But next year's election remains a key factor that top Western national security, intelligence and diplomatic officials believe will influence Putin's decisions in Ukraine, making it even less likely the war is resolved before the end of next year. A CNN poll conducted by SSRS that was released on Friday found most Americans oppose Congress providing additional funding to support Ukraine, as the public splits over whether the U.S. has or has not already done enough in the conflict. One U.S. official said they have no doubt that Putin is trying to hold out until the 2024 election. Another source familiar with the intelligence said it's sort of the elephant in the room for the U.S., Ukraine and Europe. Putin knows Trump will help him, and so do the Ukrainians and our European partners, the source said. So even though we haven't seen anything explicitly to that effect, you have to assume, I believe, that everyone is thinking it. A European diplomat told CNN that they believe trying to ride out the war in Ukraine until the U.S. election is exactly Putin's plan. Officials who spoke to CNN on condition of anonymity to discuss private internal considerations believe that Putin could be eyeing a win by Trump or another Republican candidate as a trigger for the U.S. to pull back support for Ukraine. They also say that Putin's eye on the election makes it even more important for the U.S. to maintain long-term support to Ukraine, a commitment that the Biden administration continues to reiterate. Trump, the far-and-away frontrunner for the GOP nomination at this point, has not committed to backing Ukraine in the war. He has claimed that as president he could have the war settled in 24 hours. And just this week he said that support for Ukraine should be conditioned on congressional investigations into Biden and his family, while Florida Gov. Ron DeSantis walked back previous statements, calling the war in Ukraine a territorial dispute. He has maintained a broadly anti-interventionist policy. Congressional Republicans have also drawn a tougher line on funding for Ukraine since the GOP took control of the House this year, with Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy suggesting earlier this summer that he would plan to block any Senate-led efforts to approve additional funding to aid Ukraine's war effort. The election next year complicates things because the Russians think they have a light at the end of the tunnel. It encourages Putin to think that they can outlast the Americans because political support for Ukraine will be compromised if Trump wins, said Daniel Fried, a former U.S. ambassador to Poland.